Composition can be one of the most challenging and rewarding parts of photography. So today I'm going to share several considerations that I look for in my photos and a powerful in-camera tool that will help you to remove distractions in your photographs when composing your images in the field. Just waiting for the sun to come up now for my first composition of the morning, and I think this could be a nice one. There's some lovely cloud details, so I'm really hopeful that in about 10 minutes when that sun pokes up, we're going to get some beautiful light on these rocks down here in the foreground, because it's such a wonderful location, this. How we compose our photos is what makes our images personal to us, but a few common things happen when we view a two-dimensional picture. So typically our eyes look or move across a rectangular photo from across the widest direction. So if it's a 16:9 horizontal shot, our eyes may view the image across the frame from left to right or right to left, depending on other elements in the scene, So similarly, if we've got a 5:7 vertical shot, for example, our eyes may start at the bottom and then work their way up to the sky. There is, of course, many other factors that affect how the eye is drawn through the image, such as light and subject matter, but crop orientation and dimension certainly have a big part to play. The squarer the framing becomes, the more the eye tends to be drawn towards the centre of the frame, which can be really useful for keeping the viewer interacting with the photo. Oh, my hands are cold. From the centre, the eye then starts wandering around the frame, exploring other elements. Square frames also work well for minimalist shots or abstract compositions, where there's not a direct pathway through the image. I'm just trying to shield the microphone from the winds, hope that's helping a little bit. So I'm going to go for a two-shot pano this particular scene this morning. I want to try and incorporate all of the cliffs, the beach and this rock formation we've got down here in the foreground. Absolutely wonderful, nice split in it, and a couple of little islands dotted around, and we've got wonderful Barafundle Bay there in the midground, which looks fantastic. There is some cloud detail as well. I was really hoping for that this morning, and the horizon line is clear, so fingers crossed we should get some really nice light on these rock formations. Hopefully it'll all light up and we'll get a pop of colour in the clouds too. That would be absolutely lovely. Settings wise, ever so simple really. F8, I'm at about 2 seconds at the minute, but that will change as the sun rises, and literally everything nice and level. I'm just going to pan across two shots. I've got a nice overlap for my stitch, that shouldn't be a problem. Probably stitching somewhere in the middle of the sea there, should be fine, not too much detail or anything like that, where you've got different moving patterns that might be difficult, so that's pretty straightforward. Yeah, it's just a case of waiting for that right moment now, take the shot, and then what I'm going to do is move on very, very quickly once I've taken this one to another location. So just literally about 200 yards on the headland there, to see if I can get a nice shot across the beach with the sand dunes, maybe some light on those as well. So yeah, going to be pretty quick this morning because it'd be great to get nice light up there as well as here. So I've probably got 10 minutes between the two shots. Keep our fingers crossed for the light. So I've moved around just a little bit further around from where we were situated before. Now I experimented with various different crop ratios there. I was going to go for the panoramic shot, then I decided to zoom in a bit more and focus more on the actual scene in front of me, because I felt with the wider scene there was a lot of expanse of sea on the left hand side of the frame, and I felt it detracted from the image somewhat, so I felt like a more tighter crop actually worked for that composition in the end. And I think I've got some nice light on the rocks, fingers crossed. So I use probably one of the most powerful tools to be integrated within modern cameras in recent times, and that is crop ratios or crop overlays. Now older cameras would tend to crop the image in a destructive manner, so if you chose a different crop ratio, say a square for example, you were kind of stuck with that format. you know, in your edit, you couldn't really do anything with it. But modern cameras now give you the ability to crop in camera in a non-destructive way, meaning that you can open up your image in your editing software and it will display your chosen crop. But if you click the crop tool, you'll be able to see the original image, the full image, which means that you can experiment with your crop a bit later on in post-production. You can change it if you want to. Now, the reason I like to crop in camera is that it really helps me to place the elements within the scene exactly where I want them to be. It allows me to remove distractions too and experiment with my composition. Now, this is most useful for removing distractions from the edges of your frame. Say you want to choose a 4x5 vertical composition. If you didn't crop in camera, it would be very, very difficult to see a stray branch or boulder creeping into the bottom or the top of the frame. So we can adjust the camera position or even the focal length to eliminate those distractions, making for a much cleaner composition. I find this method not only helps me to compose the image in the first place, but it also makes the image feel more intentional, if you like. The more we're connected with the image in the first place, the more we're likely to enjoy the final result. So I've moved around a little bit and I've positioned myself here. I've got this amazing gorse bush on the left hand side, which is just catching this side light now, which is absolutely fantastic. A rock here which is anchoring my foreground, the sweeping bay of Barafundle round to the right, and the rock formations on the left catching that side light once again, with some fantastic cloud detail in the sky. So I've decided to go for a 16:9 crop ratio for this particular shot. 40th of a second, f9, ISO 125, focus on the gorse bushes, everything nice and sharp. As I was walking up to this location, I grabbed a quick one of the more classic Barafundle Bay shot, if you like, with the stone arch, the wall there, looking down onto the beautiful sand. I think it worked quite well. I opted for a 16:9 crop ratio here on the back of the camera, and that eliminated a lot of the grass in the foreground, more of a rectangular shape. I think that worked quite well. Definitely got some horizontal lines running through the composition as well, which aided that 16:9 crop, allowing the eye to view the scene from left to right, which I think worked quite well. Choosing a crop ratio when in the field can be quite challenging, and I think everyone will view composition in a different way as well. So there's no fixed rules, but here are a few ideas that I use when I frame my photos. For minimalist patterns or abstract shots, I often go for a square crop, as I find it really helps to simplify the image. Squares work well for symmetry and strong diagonal lines too. 4x5s are one of my favourite ratios for vertical compositions and suit a multitude of photos. Sometimes I find a 5x7 or a 6x4 a little too long for my vertical compositions, but I think that's just the way that I see things for my vertical shots, you know. I love 5x7, 16:9 and 2x1 formats for horizontal compositions. I think 16:9 and 2x1 work really well when there's strong horizontal lines running through the image. These are just some initial considerations that I run through, but ultimately it's the elements within the scene that will dictate the crop ratio. Trying to get a shot here looking back towards this gorse bush and the stone wall that leads up to the top of the cliff there. Now we've got these marram grasses which are swaying in the breeze, look great, and they're all pointing towards my subject, which is this cliff side. And I think that works well. The light's quite harsh now, so it would have been better if I could have shot this a little bit earlier. However, you know, you're working with the conditions that you got, haven't you? So basically what I've done, I've put the polarizer on the front and a 3-stop filter to bring my exposure time down to 20th of a second. The polarizer just helps take some of the sheen off these marram grasses because they're really reflective. They're reflecting that light back and it's quite glary. So I'm just cutting through some of that sheen, which is helping, I think. 20th of a second just shows a little bit of of movement in these marram grasses when we get a gust of wind, which is nice as well. As we were talking about crop ratios, I'll just show you basically what I've done on the back of my camera here. I've got a button which I press, which changes my crop ratio, so I can cycle through my different crop ratios. So I've got 3:2, 16:9, 1:1, 4:3, 5:4, and so on. So I can just choose one that I think might suit the scene, and this particular shot I think really suits a 16:9 ratio, so that's what I've selected. And that just eliminates a little bit of the marram grasses here and breaks the composition up into thirds. So we've almost got a third of the marram grass, a third of the cliffs, and then a third of the sky, even though, you know, the cliff comes down at an angle. But yeah, I think it works quite well. So settings wise, F10, 20th per second, showing a little bit of movement. I'm just going to shield the lens from the sun. Histogram's looking good. Yeah, I think it works. Whilst composition is one of the main aspects of any photo, the way in which we edit the final image can also make a big difference to the final outcome. If you're interested in post-production, be sure to check out the video that is over here, as there's tons of behind the scenes tips. And if you like this video, please be sure to give it the thumbs up and share it if you think others might like it too. If you'd like to see more content like this, why not consider subscribing? Anyway, until next week, take care and I'll see you soon.